for someone starting out and starting their own business, just say, go for it. I mean, make it an educated bet.
Yeah.
Know the risks. Have a bailout plan. Know what you're going to do if it doesn't work. Don't be afraid to take the risk. Don't take it foolishly either. Like, don't just quit and figure it out. Know what you're going to do. Know what the steps are for success, and then go execute.
All right, so John, at Tailwind Advisors, you're the Chief Investment Officer. What is your most favorite part of your job?
Oh man, there's a lot of parts of it that I love. I love managing the team. I love finding the right answer. I love doing all the math, understanding the portfolio theory, building things up, finding good investments. But probably the thing I love most is building relationships with my clients and with my team. Because some of my partners I've worked with for 14 years almost. Some of my clients I've worked for that amount of time as well. And just doing life with people and getting to know them and supporting them, using my gifts to do good for them, there's a lot of joy in that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I know, John, you and I just really recognize like the importance of philanthropy and giving back and having ministries where we can serve those who need to be served. Tell us about what your family, what Tailwind, how you view philanthropy and what you're doing.
Yeah, well, thanks for asking, because it is something I love talking about. So, it changes over time, right? I mean, I've certainly served for years in my church. Love doing that. Continue to do that. Outside of that, I serve on the board of trustees for a little over 6 years now, I believe, at Cook Children's Hospital in Fort Worth.
Nice.
For the last 2 years, I've had the pleasure of serving as the chairman of the investment committee. So I'm getting to use my investment skills, for the good of children's health.
Very cool.
In North Texas. So that's a fantastic group, incredibly well run, and I love being a part of it. Lead a couples Bible study with some folks who are in their 30s. I'm in my late 40s. So, basically I've just made all the mistakes that they're going to see soon, so I can give them some wisdom around that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then, I also teach personal finance classes. So I teach them in the inner city in Fort Worth. I also teach them to boys and young men's service league, so kind of different ends of the economic spectrum have different issues, but I love talking to both because really personal finance is something that is not taught in schools, which to me seems a real travesty. But so I'm doing my best to kind of bolster that knowledge in young folks as well.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think like one of the most important things to teach to our kids and teach to others how to be great stewards of money and financial success, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You and I have a lot in common there. I taught Financial Peace University at my church, and my wife and I started teaching junior high and then high school, and then young couples. Have gotten to do some premarital counseling and help out with other couples, just like you said.
Awesome.
Made some mistakes and have learned a lot, and to be able to pass on some of that wisdom and invest in people is just it's great using the gifts that God's given me to be able to bless others and pass that on.
Absolutely.
So John, obviously life throws curveballs at you. What sort of personal challenges have you had to deal with?
Yeah, well, gosh, great question. Thankfully, haven't had any major challenges as far as, health or family or anything like that. So it's allowed me to be a little more introspective. And so I think the biggest challenge I've worked on overcoming personally is this, I have this theory that our weaknesses are often just our strengths gone too far, right? So what makes me really good at being a chief investment officer is that I'm highly analytical, that I'm a critical thinker, and that I evaluate everything, right? I'm constantly evaluating and thinking. Well, that's a great skill at work. That is not a great skill at home. So in 20 years of marriage and in raising 3 children, I learned pretty fast that, I have to learn to shut off that skill at
Yeah.
home. And I don't need to be analyzing my household constantly.
Yeah, so a weighted scoring matrix is usually not a
Yeah,
not a
exactly.
good move with your kids or your wife.
Correct. Correct. And just giving up, being a perfectionist, being a control freak, like a lot of that's what gets you to where you are in business, but it can also just burn you up if you don't get it under control. And so, I did a program called Townsend Leadership Program for the last couple of years, where it was a lot of insight, it's business strategy and a lot, but it's also just kind of coaching and thinking and understanding yourself. And that was one of the things, big conclusions I came out of that was just, being a perfectionist and a control freak is ultimately about fear, right? And so to the extent I see that in my life, instead of just saying change, I'm like, all right, what is it I'm afraid of losing control of, right? And so really working through that at a deep level, at a heart level, to understand, like, why am I being critical? Like, what is it? So it's been hugely introspective, game changer for me. So I'd say over the last 10 years, I've changed a lot in those areas, and especially over the last 3.
Let's talk a minute about just like the value of hard work.
Yeah.
And how did you learn to do what you do and have the grit that you have?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite questions. As a parent raising kids, I think a lot about work. I always had an attitude that I could figure things out, and I think that comes from both my parents, who always made me work. And listen, I'm not saying I grew up hard, because I didn't. I had plenty, but I always had to work. I had 5 or 6 yards that I was mowing. My dad taught me to glaze windows when I was in 5th grade, because we lived on a golf course and there were always balls coming through. So he had me out there glazing windows, and he'd give me $2 or $3 every time I fixed a window.
Yeah.
Had jobs here and there through college, but basically just maybe it's being a first kid as well. I always have enjoyed working hard. Like, I love, even now, my son mows our yard, but when he gets too busy, I mow it. I love doing physical work. I love, because it's tangible. One thing about investing and probably about tech as well, is that job's never done.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like you're an engineer and you build a bridge and then you look at it and you say, there it is.
Yeah, it's
Right.
hard to step back and go, well, job well done. I'm finished. I
Right.
can move on. Like,
And
always something, right?
An investment portfolio will never be over.
Yeah.
Just like a cyber threat
Yeah.
posture will never be done.
Right. Always moving the bar up, right?
So I love doing physical work where I can see the end of it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I really credit my parents just with making me work. And so we've taken that attitude with our kids as well. We make them, if they want a really nice pair of tennis shoes, then we give them the amount for a basic, and we call it pay the spread,
Yeah.
But they have to work to basically kind of fund some of their needs. And that just teaches the value of money and the value of work.
Yeah. So fun fact about me, I grew up on a farm. And
Okay.
so 25, 30 years ago, I was driving tractors.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly on a farm, the work is never done.
Never done.
Right? There's always something going on, something that needs to be fixed, something that needs to be improved. So technology, like, tell us what the good, the bad, the ugly is when it comes to tech.
Oh, man. So I've always been a technophile, for sure. Like, it was an early home computer adopter.
Yeah.
It was all that.
Taking apart flashlights as a kid, making the parents mad that you couldn't get them back together.
taking apart everything. As a kid. I took apart the phone. I took apart. And like my son and I recently restored a '91 Mustang
Oh, wow.
GT convertible that was my car in high school, and then sat on my grandmother's house in the country for 15 years untouched.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
we tore into that, and a lot of YouTube and some Chilton
Yeah,
manuals.
turning
and
wrenches.
figured it out. It was a ton of fun.
Yeah, I dropped a 383 stroker in my Jeep, 425 horsepower
Wow.
in an 85 CJ7. So
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
a little too much power for that Jeep. The transmission didn't last very long, but
But it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, a lot of fun with that's a little lower tech, but it was a good change up, right? I got the high tech at work and then the low tech in the garage.
That's awesome. Wow. I want to see some pictures.
Yeah.
But tech it's a catalyst, right? Like, we all carry pocket computers now, right? We call them phones for some reason, but
Right.
they're mostly a pocket computer. That makes life better and worse. I love that I can stay in touch when I'm away, but the flip side is you're always in touch. So personally, I like it. But my theories on tech is it's just a catalyst. It makes everything happen faster. It makes bad things happen faster. It makes good things happen faster. So really, it's not so much the tech itself, but what you use it for.
Yeah. What about technology and your kids? Like, how do you teach them to use tech in the right way and not in the wrong way?
Well, if it, I may be unusual here, but I wrote up a contract before any of them got a phone, a computer, or anything. They had to sign. They had to agree on how they were going to use it, how they wouldn't use it, how they'd always use it for good, how they wouldn't use it for evil. They wouldn't, they had a long list of what we're going to do and not do. And they've all stuck with it. I think social media is a whole other ball of wax. Kind of a hot button for me, but I won't go off on that here.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's a lot of issues that we're seeing on mental health and kids who are using too much social media.
Yeah, I agree.
We've pushed hard with our kids to slow that roll. But you also see that there's a cost to that, because if you don't, that's how they communicate. So if you choose to not participate, you're also cutting them out of the flow of information and social things. So, it's a double-edged sword that's hard to navigate. We may get it right on our third kid. We've got about half her grade now.
Well, I've got 5, so I guess I get a few more tries than you.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
You have five
Five kids,
Oh,
yeah.
I'd forgotten that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
well, let me know after that last one. That's what the right answer was.
So limiting the screen time and just being really careful and monitor the usage. Yeah, my wife and I agree with you on that. Is just have to be careful, because it can be used in a bad way. It can be consuming.
Absolutely.
Honestly, we see it in business a lot as well, right? I think sometimes we have a tendency to over-engineer things and overthink the use of technology. And you don't want to be chasing the next shiny object. I think that's where IT strategy is so important, to be able to look and go, like, let's think in terms of cost benefit. As an investor, I know you put the same thing in perspective from a wealth management standpoint. We do the same thing with technology. You want to put the things in that are going to move the needle for the business.
Right.
But you also do want to work in a way that's simplistic enough to where technology doesn't get in the way, right? Like,
Absolutely.
death by 1,000 cuts of technology is still death.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It can move your company backwards if you're not really pragmatic and smart about where you invest in technology and how you invest in technology. I think that's key, and that's a big deal for DKB in how we advise and guide our clients to look for what's going to move the needle,
Right.
and what's going to do it the fastest, the best way.
Biggest risk-adjusted return. Biggest bang for the buck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Cool.
All right.
I think that's a pretty good wrap.
Okay, good.
And we're off. That was fun. We just kind of wing over. That's just, you can see the G's. That's what's beeping to me.
So when we came out of that roll, that was, I heard it saying G.
Yeah, so we were doing probably around 2 G's. Okay. Got a little bit of altitude here.
Sounds like a good idea.
Leaving altitude.
It's funny, I did start sweating, but I feel okay.
The world of financial services and investments, right? Getting into it and knowing what you've learned. You mentioned coming out of the American Airlines and having really the corporate job. What advice would you give somebody stepping out on their own, like you've done, and getting into financial services?
Yeah, good question. Well, I mean, I think really to learn financial services well, to learn portfolio, you can learn a lot of good things in school about how to manage money. You can learn all the textbook stuff, all the book learning. But you have to learn what it's like in the real world as well. And so you got to take what you learn with a grain of salt, because it is as much art as science, right? So I think working inside a big organization is a great thing for learning the business. And there's so many different aspects of investments, right? I mean, you could You can work for a private equity fund. You can work for a big bank. You can work for an independent advisor. What we do gets to combine so many of those different things. It's part of what I love about my job also is that it's different every day, and I get to be good at a lot of different things. But for someone starting out and starting their own business, just say, go for it. I mean, make it an educated bet.
Yeah.
Know the risks. Have a bailout plan. Know what you're going to do if it doesn't work. Don't be afraid to take the risk. Don't take it foolishly either. Like, don't just quit and figure it out. Know what you're going to do. Know what the steps are for success, and then go execute on it.
Yeah, so calculated risk.
Right.
Right? Awesome. Get that barf bag in your hand just because it will sneak up on you. Yeah, just have that available. How you feeling?
I feel fine now. I felt better as soon as I puked.
November 717 Charlie Echo, runway 36 left, taxiway
Sorry
Charlie,
about
crossing
that.
at 18
Oh
left.
man,
Oh, short runway
it
20
happens.
right.
At least 50%, probably more.
Runway 36 left, Charlie, both
I knew it was going to happen if we did the loop.
right left, both right.
But you wanted
But
to.
I had to do it.
Here we are.
And we're back. Sarah Furman. Ready? Thank you. Fine now.
All right, John, what you got there? You got a little
souvenir.
souvenir?
I got a little oatmeal, a little water.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
So how many years has it been since you threw up?
I don't know. It's been at least 15 years since I've done
Yeah?
it. Maybe 20.
Hey man, I'm glad I could be a part of this moment.
Yeah, way to go. Thank you.
All right, I call that an episode. That's a take for InFlight with DKB. Thanks, John, for joining me, and it was a blast.
That was awesome. Thank you.
See you next time.
All right.